Hey everyone, so in the process of editing my last video on the importance of stillness and boredom, in real life and in video games, and, well, in storytelling in general, I tried to find some footage for Studio Ghibli, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Studio Ghibli movies, and I found this video by Hayao Miyazaki, the guy who, I believe he created the studio and he is behind most of the movies of the studio. And it's funny, so this is going to be a reaction video, but it's not a reaction to it fresh. I haven't watched it since last night when I was doing my editing, but I found it a bit profound, but also a bit sad, and that has to do with his life and the way that he views things, I think. I just felt compelled to make this video where I watch this, react to it, and give my thoughts on this, because he's a brilliant man. He has created such wonderful movies, but it's kind of sad the way he views things. So let's get into this.
早く映画終わらせなきゃいけない。飛行機の設計家とか機械を設計した人たちっていうのはどんなにその時が善であると思ってやってもやっぱり時代の風化の中で機械文明そのものの手先になるから。
Yeah, I found this is the part that was, I mean, the whole thing is hard hitting, but this part here kind of just is the first punch, because it's true. War, and I mean, in his life, this is especially true that he comes to this realization because his father, I believe, worked on airplanes during World War II, specifically for war. Now, he appreciates them not as a weapon, but just as the thing itself. And airplanes in and of themselves are really cool. They allow us to fly from place to place quicker than we ever have in the past. And it's a really cool thing. It's I feel kind of cheesy saying it because it's been so overused in media and stuff, but it has been a dream of humanity to fly since as far as we can remember. And now we have that ability and it's amazing. But even that is used for war. Pretty much anything we can use for war, we do use for war. And I think that's what he's getting at, is that like industrial civilization itself is a machine, and all the great things that make up it are cogs in that machine. And if that machine is used for war, then all those beautiful cogs are now being used for war too. That's kind of my take, but let's continue.
無傷じゃないんですよ。呪われた夢なんです。アニメーションもそうです。
Yeah, I suppose I was trying to think about the cursed dreams thing, and that I guess what that probably means, and I've kind of put some thought into this ahead of time, is that no matter how virtuous and great your dreams may be, they can be used in a negative way. And for him, for animation, that's his career, he makes animated movies. They can be used for, hypothetically, for propaganda. They can be used, it depends on the person's life, somebody's access to nature, going out in nature and exploring, for example, like I mentioned in my last video, that was a big part of my life growing up. Watching a 2-hour movie might be 2 hours less than I spent outside exploring and having fun. Again, that's just my thoughts on that.
呪われた夢。呪われてる。今の人類の夢っていうのはみんな呪われてますよ、どっかで。美しく呪われた夢ってことが多いんですよ。金を稼ぎたいとかそういうのは全部論外。有名になりたいっても論外。そんなのクソくらいで。そういうことじゃない。映画が素晴らしい。映画が本当に素晴らしいのかどうかわからないじゃない。
Okay, so I'm going to make this a bit personal, but how do we even know movies are worthwhile? I've had that thought myself with game dev, with which my channel is about. I know I haven't really touched on game dev specifically in a few videos, but that's ultimately what my channel is centered around. That's been my hobby since I was 12 years old, and I love it. You know, as soon as I played my very first video game, I wanted to know how these things were made, and I've been fascinated with it ever since. And some of my greatest memories were playing video games with friends, and it's been very helpful in my life at times. But I think we can't deny that video games societally have been problematic too, particularly by companies that, I mean, most of us have problems with the AAA industry the past decade, I'd say, with the exploitation of players, the crazy monetization problems, the hijacking of attention, which I mentioned in my previous video. You know, as great as video games have been for me and have been for many people, helping people out in hard times, even if you look at a game like Celeste, that's a powerful story about anxiety and depression. It's a personal story, you can tell by the way that it's written, and it's a helpful tool for people going through some kind of crisis. And you know, any video game can be helpful, but it can also be problematic. Just as World of Warcraft can be a distraction for somebody going through a hard time, it can also be an addiction that stops them from, you know, progressing in life. And you hear stories or heard stories about that all the time, about people just pouring money into World of Warcraft and ultimately getting nothing out of it. And that is kind of an issue that I have that I'm trying to face myself right now with the intention of creating video games, because right now, as I talked about in my last video, I'm kind of in a place where I'm trying to slow down and kind of regain my attention span and just kind of live more like I lived before this hyper stimulated, overstimulated kind of environment that we find ourselves living in now. And the thing is that video games, in my view, contribute to that problem. They don't need to. It's a personal choice that people engage in. And the thing is that I played video games in the 90s and early 2000s when all this kind of attention economy world that we live in wasn't that world back then, and I had no problems with video games back then. So they can be healthy, but in the way that our society is now, they can also be harmful, and that's something I'm trying to sort out for myself. And I think that's an issue that Miyazaki is facing with his animation as well, that, you know, he's trying to depict this, his movies tend to show places with a slower pace of life. It's like the thing he's depicting through a medium that kind of is contradictory to that. So if that makes any sense, I don't know how else to put it though, that he's depicting it what is an ideal type way of living a lot of the time, and the way that the medium that he's depicting it through is part of the problem, probably from his point of view. Yeah, it's a really trippy kind of concept, but yeah, it's a hard thing to reconcile. But let's continue.
本当にきちんと考えたら映画が好きだってのはただのそういう趣味でしょうっていう。かつてそういう映画が作られたことがあったかもしれないけど、今も映画の価値があるわけじゃない。多くはくだらないんですよ、僕らのこの世界は。
Okay, so I disagree with that. I'll get into that later. See, okay. Where was it?
まあもう映画の価値があるわけじゃない。
So you could make movies that mattered then. I 100% disagree with that. I think that's just his own nihilism and bitterness, because people are engaging with media at different points in their life. So, you know, it's hard to put into words again, but things aren't to him probably as impactful as they used to be, because maybe there's nothing new that he's getting out of them. But something that he makes that's brand new, like his latest movie, The Boy and the Heron, which probably came out after this clip here, is going to be impactful for somebody in a way that it might not, I mean, maybe that movie, I'm assuming that movie was impactful for him. He made it for a reason. But okay, so I'll go to a different example. So some random movie that he might watch this thing and say this movie is garbage. There's nothing somebody can learn out of this movie. And that's not necessarily true. Like maybe somebody, like a younger person watching this other movie for the first time, learned something really impactful from it. You know, it's like in video games, how video games develop. I watched a video about a guy who was getting his girlfriend, who never played video games, to play a bunch of video games. And in the process, he learned that she had a lot of fundamental issues with playing these games, because for most of us who grew up playing video games, we learned skills that kind of transferred from game to game to game. So like in Super Mario Brothers, you learn to run and jump, and you know, it keeps on progressing, and we learn eventually, like in later games, we learn about invisible boundaries and stuff like this. So it's just innate knowledge to us by the time we're playing modern games. We don't have to think about certain things. But if you haven't grown up with those experiences, then if you don't know about invisible boundaries, then level design can be completely foreign to you and cannot make sense in a way, because level designers designed it in a way that they expect people to understand. But if you've never played a game before, that design won't make sense. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, for new gamers, there should be new games that replicate what the old games that we used to play did, but are more appealing to modern audiences, but still teach those skills. People a lot of time will look at games that are like that and say these games are derivative. They're like, it's no different from Super Mario Brothers, but like, that's okay. That's important, because playing those games develops skills that allow new players to play more advanced games. So I'm hoping you can kind of see the analogy that I'm trying to bridge between movies and games. It's like, for him, again, these movies may seem like, he said, rubbish. The world is rubbish. Like, he may see no value from a more modern movie, but that's because he's learned things from movies like 20, 30, 40 years ago. But a kid might watch a movie that he thinks is garbage and get so much out of it. I've definitely repeated myself there. So I'm hoping that point got through. But let's see. Most of our world is rubbish. Yeah, that just sounds kind of more of a negative personal view. Maybe he's depressed. I don't know. Because I think, like, with the whole everything that he's saying, like cursed dreams and all this stuff, it's one side of a coin, but there's another side too. It's like, yes, in a way, the world is rubbish. We follow the same patterns of behavior. It's like we're always getting into more wars, and it's like we don't learn from our own history. And for him, being somebody who's so anti-war, who grew up with it, it's got to be frustrating seeing humanity making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and seeing the darker side of human nature kind of seemingly, I don't know how to put this, like, be victorious. But, you know, I don't have the same background as him, so I don't have that trauma, and I see the other side of the coin. Just as our dreams are cursed, they're blessed too, you know? He's going on about airplanes being ultimately used as a weapon. Yeah, but they're ultimately used as a tool to connect us in ways that we've never been connected before. You know, it's truly amazing, the dreams that we have, the art that he does. He went on about even animation being a cursed dream, but his movies probably helped a lot of people get through hard times, or just gave them joy. They certainly helped me. In the videos I've been going on about the importance of stillness, I might not have learned that lesson had it not been for his movies. And he didn't even explicitly set out to tell those, to teach that message, I'm pretty sure. It's just, that's just what I got from watching his movies. So he says cursed dreams, I say blessed dreams too, or there's two sides to that coin. So I don't know, I thought this was very profound, but it's also kind of depressing, and I hope he can see that there is another side to that coin, that yeah, I don't need to repeat myself, but I hope that he can see the good side of things as well. And the hope that we might have to build a better future, that perhaps we can try to defy our, cycle of negativity and war and perhaps someday break out of it. That's a huge, very wishful thinking thing, but so is flying 1,000 years ago. So is flying 500 years ago. So was flying 200 years ago. That was an impossibility for the longest time, and we have it now. So it may seem that we are doomed to continue with these cycles of destruction, but maybe someday we'll look back and say it was actually pretty easy to stop all this. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I hope you can see that, because it would probably make him feel better. Anyway, so that's about that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.